Everyone to the discussion of the Delectable Negro, Chapter 5, Eating Nat Turner. This writing is very academic. Very, very academic. Anyone have anything from this chapter right off the way they want to get out? Well, the first thing I have highlighted, I'm just gonna read it. After taking the nigger to the woods about 4 miles from Greenwood, they cut off his penis. He was made to eat it. Then they cut off his testicles and made him eat them and say he liked it. So this is just that, that white supremacy stuff. I think learning about the origins of why black male genitals are always attacked, which is because that is what like procreates life, reproduces more black people. Learning about that makes me understand why during these lynchings and stuff, they always castrated the black male because that's the source of where the black genetic material is able to, make more black people, make more black babies. If you don't have your testicles, you can't make more black babies. So this is why historically when black men are lynched, they are mostly always castrated. And we learned that Nat Turner was castrated. And it's just that subconscious or conscious fear that white people have of black people making too many black babies to the point where they, I don't know, just white supremacy.
It's crazy too, because like I remember reading somewhere that in the Brady Bunch, that was the first time I think they slept in separate beds, and that was the first time that two people slept in the same bed on a TV show. And to think that kids were coming to, like little white kids, were coming with their parents to lynchings and watching black men being castrated at the same time having this like fake ass puritanical culture. It's just really like such a insane contradiction.
Yeah, that's the hypocrisy. Like as we have been unlearning to understand the European mind, white mind, we learned that hypocrisy is it's bread and butter. And just taking an example from this book, honor and owning a slave. Like you cannot have quote unquote honor and behave in this manner. That's a contradiction in itself. That's hypocrisy because people of honor, they treat other people with respect, with kindness. But leave it to the European mind to devise what honor means. We have honor being a thing where white men make themselves literal gods and they make other people slaves and play these roles to fulfill their subconscious and conscious fantasies about being superior, which and superior in what way actually just and being able to rationalize violence, that's a good way that they've proven to be more superior, I would imagine, I say. But in regards of being like, competent human beings, far from that. Actually, they have been quite the opposite of human beings. So yeah, that's my. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I love that. It's just more white insanity. Many whites fear that Turner would literally rise from the grave and rebone himself. Now, I don't think they actually believe this. I think they just wanted a reason to justify what they did to his body. I think they wanted a reason to justify chopping his body up, boiling it, and making designer items out of it, out of his flesh. So maybe some whites actually have this genuine fear, but I think a lot of them just rationalize it to do what they did to his body. But what are you guys' thoughts on that?
It makes sense when you think about like zombie movies and stuff too. Maybe it's just like this fear of like the people they've oppressed waking up from the dead and like just fucking killing them all like in mass.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a real fear, like a subconscious type fear, like that their sins would like come back to them.
The way I understand zombie movies, it's whenever I see a zombie movie, the zombies represent Black people to me, and not in the sense of white people being afraid of having to like deal with them. Just white people be knowing how to deal with them, knowing how to treat them, knowing to treat them as subhuman, as things that they have to destroy. That's I think that's the manifestation of the zombie genre.
Yeah, but there's a fear based in that even if the subhumans like innately attacks you without even thinking about it collectively.
Oh, collectively, yeah, of course, collectively, that's always a problem for them. Yes. Yeah, that would be scary for them. Unified, unconscious, collective goal to get rid of them by any means. That would be a nightmare for them. Maybe we do need a zombie disease to break out, but doesn't make us zombies. It makes us conscious of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and zombies are like super collective. Like they'll die for the other people, to get through.
No one's afraid. They're like, all of them are just ready to go wherever it needs to go.
At least somebody's eaten, even if it's not.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Just respond really quick. So I'm like, as I'm watching, in just what's it called? Lovecraft Country, and because I don't like horror and like thinking about that genre more, which I've avoided for a long part of my life. But just like, I feel like even when like so much what was emphasized, even in spaces that really think they're like really like liberal or something about like this history is like the psychological trauma, which obviously is like immense, but like this shit is so like these details are so horrific, like that it's some real it's like truly reminiscent of like gory movies that like this like is so fantastical to like current society, I feel. Or just like, they think of like Game of Thrones, like only something that could happen in like medieval times, like when people do something like this. But this is so recent and obviously had like, and I'm just shocked at how much this is, like, as we said before, like the actual details, like even though it's disturbing to read, like it's important to read. And so, and I guess that a lot of times when people are just like reckoning with like the psychological trauma, even though that's just like as important, obviously, as we know, but it's like easier for like white people to consume and be like, oh yeah, like, like when reading like Beloved or like Toni Morris and things like that, versus like these really grotesque descriptions.
Yeah, like if every white person read Medical Apartheid, maybe they'd be like, all right, white people, let's get together and really talk about what's going on here. I don't want to be like this anymore. If I'm like this, am I like this? I don't know. And then maybe I don't know. Anywho, I want to comment on how where history is repeating itself. Styron's novel received the Pulitzer Prize in 1968 and was translated into 5 different languages. This white man wins a Pulitzer Prize for writing about the suffering of Black people. What happened during Ferguson? Did some white article guy write something and win the same prize for writing about the Ferguson protests and stuff like that? You guys know what I'm talking about? I'm sure that
I think I knew that a photographer got like.
Well, someone was awarded. Some white person was awarded for depicting Black suffering and the social issue that, and 1968, the social issue being like, the treatment of Black people is like, okay, we're gonna reward this white guy, but we're not gonna do any like social healing. We're not gonna do any like community work. We're not gonna do any reparations for what this white man is talking about happened to these Black people. Nope, we're just gonna celebrate the white person. Same as giving the Pulitzer Prize to whoever was involved in talking about Ferguson, instead of unpacking Ferguson and getting to the root of systematic white supremacy. But no, we're just gonna give this guy a reward and not fix anything in Ferguson or try to. But.
Yeah, it's it makes sense too, because it's like 1968 is a time of real like rise of like militancy and a lot of like really radical Black organizations and Black leaders. And so like putting out that book is such a fuck you. It's literally like, your heroes suck or some shit like that. Like it's so blatant, right? And it's like totally meant to be like, oh, like if the heroes of the past are like this, who are like the heroes that you have now? Like what kind of like sick or like, like it's almost like everything that Black people do in terms of like when they do it on their own, it's always seen as like fraudulent or like they're trying to fraud or scam or something, or that they're like these children who just like valorize people and don't have any complexities, even though that's like what white America does. But it's just like really, it's just such a big fuck you. Like, and it just totally makes sense because they still do shit like that. Like a lot of the stuff that comes out that's supposed to be like, except now they just have a Black person writing it. So it's not like as controversial, but it's still just like propaganda and stuff, like to de-radicalize people.
Yeah, I'm disgusted every time I think about that movie, Queen and Slim. Oh my God.
Yeah, for real.
Oh my God.
I didn't see that, but I heard it was terrible.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Not around these parks. The movie's a good movie around these parks. Some people really enjoy that film because that film maintains the status quo.
Yeah, it maintains the status quo, and then like, I mean, there's a spoiler, but like
don't worry.
The person who betrays them at the end is a Black man. Like, so it's just like, what the it's supposed to, like, and that's like literally like the last scene is this Black man counting his money from like ratting them out after they were both like shot. And it's just like, oh my God, like, yeah.
Nina, wait, why?
Yeah,
like, what the fuck?
Oh, like, yeah.
Wow. Damn. What the heck? And everyone's like, oh my God, representation, like a dark-skinned couple on screen, like so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like this incredibly violent or aggressive.
Yeah, more pornographic media being fed to us.
Fuck.
But yeah, but then like that's a good question. And then like, how do you depict the things that we read in like Delectable Negro in a way that's not like reselling this like Black trauma narrative? Because I thought about that, like the more that, because it's like people need to know this stuff, but then it's like, how do you phrase it and say it in a way that's not like making it sensationalized, but actually saying that these are real things. This is a real violence that we need to like contend with. Yeah.
Well, whenever we're reading these about like what was done to these people, I have never once have read the line, imagine what that felt like, or imagine what that person was thinking when this was happening. I have never once have
Yeah.
heard any author have some kind of human emotional, connection or caringness to the subject of what they're writing about. And maybe that's them trying to be professional, but professionalism is white supremacy. That's just not real. It's, not real.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. I'm thinking like I'm thinking about how I felt to like have to your mind to be trained to think in such a limited like scope and to be in a constant state of terror, and how like, just living in a hood is very traumatizing. So you understand that like, your heart racing in very odd moments, pretty commonly. And, you understand that like that fear of something behind you, but it's not behind you. It's just like, the remnants of like, anything happened to me at this point, that's a plantation life I could get. Whipped, raped, or sold, any of those things, or something in between, like being sold to a medical lab or a hospital, or just any other horrible thing that has happened and is still happening.
Yeah, I think what makes like this book like really powerful is that it's a lot more entrenched in specific people, specific moments that gets talked about for a long amount of like pages and paragraphs, and it's not just like a type of statistical like numbers or things like that. And I think that it actually does a good job in that's all I was gonna say.
And like referencing in different contexts like the same people.
That constant reminder.
Yeah.
This part just reminded me about just the white supremacist mentality, which is like, killing is fun to them. Like they enjoy a nice battle, This is on page 180. The book is so popular with whites because it proves that if Negroes retaliate against injustice by violence, they will be quelled by violence. The book also gives, she says, the blessing of history for continued violence against Negroes. The rapid church bombings, lynching, assassinations of the 1960s supported Wilson's assertions. Styron's novel only excavated the myths and social fictions that fueled this institutionalized violence against African American persons. So I'm like, that's white supremacy in effect. They have this kill or be killed mentality. It's no peacemaking mentality. It's a kill or be killed mentality, which is not unfortunate. It's just the reality of it. Great catch.
Yeah, it was like what is, I don't know. As James Baldwin, what the fuck? Like, it just makes me really think.
This is
I don't know. Like,
yeah,
it puts a lot into perspective about the reprisal of like James Baldwin in like American liberal conversations and stuff.
Yeah, James Baldwin, I must have been very confused about what white supremacy was and how it operated, because a lot of his co-signage to white people of that era was detrimental to Black people.
Yeah, like I don't even think it was confusion. I just think it was like finessing. Sorry, I don't want to be like rude because I think James Baldwin is like an amazing person, but like I remember Ishmael Reed, who's like another Black author, wrote about how when James Baldwin wrote Notes on a Native Son, which is supposed to be his critique on Richard Wright's Native Son, it was like a hit piece. like, and like he got like, he was paid by white people to like write that like book that's supposed to be like, you know, this, and he said he regretted it later on because he was like way too harsh on him for it. So then it just puts that into context too of like him and Styron to like that relationship. And yeah, like I don't know.
I do think the interactions between Baldwin and the Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah.
I do think those were really interesting. Let me see if I highlight anything from those parts.
What page?
I'm gonna see if I highlighted anything from that.
Oh, 198.
It's like
no. I didn't find it. I haven't found it yet. But I'm gonna go continue on just
198.
Pages on page 191, but this is not what I was talking about. This is something else. But I think it involves James Baldwin getting it's James Baldwin getting groped by
the cop.
Yeah, by a white supremacist. Yeah. He had got himself sweating drunk in order to arrive at this despairing titillation with his wet eyes staring at my face and his wet hands groping my cock. We were both abruptly in history's ass pocket. It was okay. Well, I don't think I need to read any. Well, I'm gonna finish reading it. It was frightening, not the gesture itself, but the abjectness of it. I think this is just the manifestation of the white supremacists wanting what they can't have, which is the ability to make melanin, which is like symbolized by the cock. The cock is how the genetic material from the testicles delivers to the genetic material into the female to make black babies. And because the white man would need a black penis to do that, this is why subconsciously or consciously he's grabbing James Baldwin's quote unquote cock. I don't know. I just highlighted that. I want to talk about it. It reminded me of the sub or conscious want that white supremacists have. Oh, this part reminded me of Atlanta, the current Atlanta.
The city?
Yeah.
Or the show? Okay.
Yeah, the city.
Oh,
it was kidding. It was even conceivable. I think he's referring to James Baldwin. I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. It was conceivable to him that were it not for the migration of black men out of the South post-emancipation, the entire region might have become an absolutely homosexual community.
Oh yeah, that was wild.
Wherein white male desire for black men was more openly and socially acceptable.
So what page is that on?
This is on page 192 at the very top.
Yeah, I had highlighted that too.
So, yeah.
This is like quite a statement.
I just reminded me. Oh, well.
It's like I understand this is like very like theoretical, blah blah blah. But I'm just like, how? I don't know. This is like, yeah.
Wow. Okay, and this is gonna reinforce what I said earlier about the white supremacists grabbing James Baldwin's quote unquote cock. Mm-hmm. And I think this is more his words, it is absolutely certain that white men who invented the nigger's big black prick are still at the very mercy of this nightmare and are still, for the most part, doomed in one way or another to attempt to make this prick their own. So, another overt representation about the white man's want to control or own the black man's private areas, testicles, dick, whatever, pecker, whatever we want to call it. And due to this, unconscious or conscious like want desire, they are forever destined to feel incomplete or less than, consciously or subconsciously.
That's the part that you read before. For some reason, I read it, but I did not read it because I'm reading it now, and it's super interesting. The one about the South.
The community, yeah, absolutely homosexual.
Yeah. I think that's very, very interesting, especially because like he's implying basically that because Black men could use that desire or that homoeroticism that white men in power have with Black men to prevent them from like when he talks about you get your brother off from the prison farm, basically like using that in exchange, right? And that would have set up a whole like society that was based on this idea that, am I making sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, I was really confused by this because I don't know if this is like like an exchange that was like empowering Black men if they hadn't left, like some power they had over white men because of their white men's homoerotic attraction. Like
I think it's just like using what is like it's an exchange, but based on like shitty power dynamics,
right?
Trying to get like something from it, which is very interesting. Like when he's saying Baldwin's sexual encounter counters the idea that if a Black man were doing the fucking of a white man, then his manhood remained intact and he could be considered revolutionary, a notion that many Black power advocates silently entertain. I feel like that's so within our discourse right now, and I think that's super interesting because yeah, that's super interesting. I don't know, I don't want to say problematic stuff. So like I feel like the whole like
take this off
like the whole like hyper sexualized like finessing white men type feminism type is like that. I feel like that's totally like a similar
like scamming.
Yeah, and it's a way of like empowering yourself because you're like within this transaction, you're being exploited, but then you're like getting something out of it too. Like, and I think that's similar to what he's talking about. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, that reminds me, that like makes me think about like my like non-white young women friends who like will have an older white sugar daddy, and it's like this dynamic. Yeah, exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and it's like not revolutionary because it's reinforcing like, but it's like this kind of like individual way of surviving. Like it's a survival tactic. That's like,
but as a way to like be able to mentally accept it, it's people, and so it's like I don't judge them, but it's just like fuck, like that's what people have to do so that they can even just like live with the fact of what they have to do.
Yeah,
like put a twist on it.
I
read I forget this writer's name, but they're like a really contentious like South Asian writer online, and like they're super queer and like wrote something like there's nothing
is she like older?
Yes,
like big hair.
I think so. Yeah,
she's hella. I like her. She writes a lot of interesting shit.
Yeah, like that's like pushing. Yeah, I don't know. I forget their name, but she'll just be like, "There's nothing inherently revolution about you having sex." Like, just stuff that I'm just like, this is like really important.
Yeah. Like it's not subversive to just like,
mm-hmm.
To
just like feel. I don't know, and it's interesting because like a lot of stuff like pleasure activism is like very trendy right now, and like.
Wait, excuse me, who?
Yeah, let's bring. she like is. That would be actually interesting. Yeah, what's her name?
I think it starts with like a Y, but I can't.
No, I'm talking about what is pleasure activism. It's just white people going out and like wanting to pretend.
No, it's like it's actually written or like being by Adrienne Marie Brown, who is like a Black queer femme. I don't know the pronouns, but based out of California. And hold on, I want to remember the other person's name.
Her name is, the other person is Yasmin Nair or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she's super.
I mean, it's just that's the type of thing where it's like, sometimes like I'll be reading something like pleasure activism, and it's like the feeling like, okay, yeah, like doing good things for myself is like important, blah, 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 but it's like not challenging me. And then,
hair activism type thing? Or is it like pleasure, like sexual?
Not just sexual, but just like all sorts of like doing shrooms or just like radical.
Oh, so everything I do is radical because I'm Black and oppressed or something like
something. I haven't read the book, so I can't like talk shit eloquently on it. But like I just know it's like she's like on all these panels right now, and I don't know. It's like, and she also wrote Emergent Strategy.
Yeah, I got that book, but.
What is the what's the I don't know if it's just supposed to like make people feel like happy-go-lucky about doing like really difficult work, which is like I understand that like why someone would be like there has to be a better way that we can but it's like maybe not, like maybe this is just that hard and that terrible.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been thinking about that a lot in terms of just like society and pleasure in general. And that's really interesting that they're trying to like radicalize pleasure when I think pleasure is like a very de-radical like idea, because it's like it feeds into a lot of like the white supremacist ideas of constantly feeling good and like using nature or whatever, and always is self-seeking to feel good. And I think like people need to learn how to be uncomfortable, and like that's really sad that is like a thing, and she's writing a book on that. I was like gonna read her book, and then I was like looking through the back of it, and she put the Hamilton soundtrack as like, and I was like, what the fuck, this is about like these are you're Black, what the fuck. So that hella threw me off, and then I was like, this is probably for white people or something. So then I kind of like stopped reading it. So I can't judge you on that, but
no, same. But it's like the thing where everyone's like, oh my god, this like Black queer radical thought, and it's like, and like I feel like I don't know, like obviously like self-care came from the Black Panther Party, and like that is like an important part, like aspect of life so that we can function, but. I don't know. Maybe I'm pretty sure my roommates have it because they're all like therapists and shit and love that type of shit. So I'll read it and come back. But yeah, just basically, I like that Yasmin Nair, like, will go against that, you know? Like, just, like, feel good to feel good type
Yeah,
of.
she was the first person that I was reading who made me realize, like, was, like, about that whole, like, BDSM being, like, revolutionary. About how stupid that was. And that's when it started, like, to click that it's more of just, like, people turning things into revolutionary acts instead of actually subverting, like, society and stuff.
Yeah, like her, And I'm like, this is why she doesn't have much of more of a platform, because she's, like, going against the grain. Like, this is why she doesn't have, like, fat book deals and stuff, even because it's, like, actually challenging people.
Yeah, and that's what I was, like, getting at with, like, James Baldwin. And I feel bad saying that, but it's, like, it just makes me wonder, why is he so, like, on the, like, everyone's mind right now?
Yeah.
He has this big resurgence, like him and Audre Lorde.
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, because a lot of the people that you don't know are the ones who are really saying, like, the more radical stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, like Bobby Wright, Menticide, that should be common knowledge by this point. I didn't even know how old the material was, but
what is it? All right, Bobby Wright.
Yeah, I think it's one of in those essays I sent. I don't know if I ever sent to, but I ever sent two Menticide essays. I'm sure I sent them, or someone sent them. Did anyone recall? Well, like, there's two Menticide essays.
I put the name in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because a lot of those people that we've been reading for, like, the book clubs and stuff are, like, always, like, psychiatrists or psychologists.
Yeah.
And, like, but the people who are really, like, valorized are just, like, writers. Like, I don't know, there's something about that is, like, it makes you wonder, are they, like, into the, like, obviously they want change and they want, but, like, I'm wondering too, is it, like, beneficial to have this, like, I don't know, to romanticize or to put so much, like, emphasis on, like, nuance? And because I think that's why people like James Baldwin, is he's very, like, nuanced and he writes really smartly, because I can never understand half of this shit. But yeah, I don't know where I'm getting at.
It's okay. These are, like, conversations that I literally am not able to have with anyone else on the regular basis, because it's like, you know, that one very specific writer that wrote this hot take, like, 5 years ago. But they're good. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I think even on Twitter, I like so many things on Twitter where I'm like, essays could be written about this, but it's like, just say you like having sex with white people and go. Like, you don't have to, like, you know, like, no one cares. Like, just do whatever the fuck you want to do, but don't make it political.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, that was an aside, but
I'm not as free spirited anymore. I don't think people should do whatever they want to do. I think all people should work to end racism and white supremacy. So I think that's a 9 billion person task. But this is reminding me. What I'm gonna read reminds me of what it means to make America great again. The thought of slavery had something exciting in it for me. Alike whether from the standpoint of master or servant, that one man could possess, sell, or whip another caused intense excitement in reading Uncle Tom's Cabin, which I read at the beginning of my puberty. I had erections. I forget who was saying this, but it's a white man saying it. I can't recall getting erections from thinking about slavery or violence in that matter. So when I hear people say "Make America Great Again," I also can't recall any particular time in history where America was so-called great. Therefore, I feel subconsciously or consciously when people say "Make America Great Again," they want their old freedom to do whatever they want to Black people or to all people, actually. So when they say "Make America Great," it means slavery was awesome. It was nice, raping and lynching those niggers and eating them. And it means the lynching 2 Negroes a week after slavery was nice. KKK was nice. Being able to proudly be a KKK member was nice. and it was great. And that's what it means to make America great, consciously or consciously. Um, that's my 2 cents in a biscuit.
Yeah, that is, yeah. I don't know. I don't have words for, like, I can't even comprehend like having any sort of pleasure at that. Like, if one, you have to be so detached from another person's humanity, which obviously white people are, and then, but not just that, like, you have to enjoy that person. Like, there's one thing to like see someone as like an animal or something, but there's other things like it's to enjoy watching them suffer too.
Yeah, so
It's really interesting, and it's interesting that that person wrote about, or the person who wrote that, he wasn't the one who got the erection, but he like wrote about it, and he was the one who coined the term masochism. Like, that's just very interesting in general.
it's just like this natural masochistic behavioral pattern that just white people may be born with, or just the culture is so 24 hours a day. By the time you're like 1 year old, you've already consumed enough information and symbols and signals to know that you should enjoy abusing and subjugating people who are not like you.
Yeah. And that's why I think like James Baldwin's idea of why this book should be out is kind of flawed, because I get what he was trying to say in that this is the white psychology. This is how white people see Black people, so it should be out there. But it's similar to like what Ebene was saying at the first meeting we had with like the George Floyd thing, how people need to see it. But then like, you know, she was talking about people who can get like sexual pleasure from this, and like how within the context that we live in, it's very hard for a white person or even a Black person to read that and be like, oh, the white person is the fucked up person for having these thoughts about Black people. I feel like either the Black person will, you know, feel like their hero is, you know, not their hero, and the white person will feel vindicated in some way. Like, I feel like unless you set up a society where people see things differently and understand the facts differently, they can't read this type of text in any other way than it was written. Like, I don't think you can take something subtly from it unless you understand like the history, like the true history.
Yeah, and most people don't have a goddamn clue about the true history, and it's disgusting and despicable that white supremacy has made the globe entirely ignorant of their existence and their operation.
Yeah. It makes me want to read Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'm so glad I didn't have to read that shit in fucking school. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's such a common book to read, like in high school or something.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about like towards the end when he talks about like Black male consumption of their leaders, and like white, and how white, that part was really confusing. Did you guys understand it?
No.
Mm, maybe I could understand it as like the black males like needing to get energy from each other because I should quote duh, duh, duh. He thinks of Willie McGee and Emmett Till and the host of unnamed black men lynched for supposedly violating Southern white women. Slave narratives are rife with examples of sons made to witness the momentary and long-term demise of their fathers. So due to like the centuries of like traumatic abuse of slavery and black males seeing their fathers taken away, brutalized, tortured, raped, and that manifesting into their era where it was still happening meant that this is like where we're traumatized. We don't know like what a quote unquote father figure is even supposed to be like because we don't have like what a father meant in the African context and what a father means in a white context is a person who has power, and black males have no power within a white supremacist system. So what is a father to a black male? So I don't know. No, I don't know. It's very confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting too when you say that, because in Go Tell It on the Mountain, like I like that he put that scene in about him and his dad in the bathtub and comparing it to like Ham, because I thought that was really interesting. And also like even in that book, that's not really his dad. Like that's someone who takes on the responsibility of being his dad, but always has this resentment towards him because he's not his real father and stuff. And like, yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Oh yeah, and just to emphasize more of this generational trauma of that I mentioned about the black fathers. More specifically, Baldwin emphasizes with Muhammad's own tragic history,
Yeah.
which involves seeing his father hang before his eyes. His father's blood rushed out as Baldwin heard it. Muhammad saw the same blood rush and splash down through the leaves of his tree on him. Straight,
Mm-hmm.
straight from a goddamn horror movie, but it's not a horror movie. It's America. America. It's white supremacy, and it's alive and well.
That's the same thing that happened to Malcolm X's dad too. Like I don't know if he saw it, but I know that white people came to his house or something to like kill his dad, and
Well,
it took him.
if
Hmm?
yeah, if it was two lynchings a week for
Yeah.
like I don't know how many years, it could happen to anybody.
No, but I just mean like that they have that shared like
Oh
Mm.
of like watching their fathers be
yeah,
killed by white people.
um, I think I'm gonna read this part. It's on 206. Um, Douglas referred to the legacy of violence and terror that has caused many slaves to remain frozen in terror and apathetic to their bondage status. He referred to the constant haunting presence of grim death, a catch-all term for the range of horrid death that resulted from desperation, nihilism, and soul murder. Douglas understood self-consumption as a process of turning upon the self, a natural response to the physical and spiritual starvation endemic to the culture of slavery. So he's talking about the slaves who have accepted the slave roles and how miserable that is, and how that is filled with apathy, fear, and dread under the system of chattel slavery. But because the system of white supremacy is a slave prison system, we still see this today. We see Black people, non-white people, totally unaware to talk about the reality of even their personal experiences of what they've been subjected to, of their own trauma, because of they live in a white supremacist society. So I see it everywhere, just people just milling around, totally depressed, traumatized under this system, and not knowing what to do about it, not knowing what is even, not knowing why things are happening to them, just trying to survive, just trying to stay in their lane, stay out the way from who? White supremacists. That's who. But they don't know this language, or maybe, yeah. So what lane are you trying to stay in? The lane that's not the white supremacists, because I don't want to get ran over like we've been getting ran over for centuries, and that could be subconscious or conscious thought. You know, and I think about how Black people really don't read, especially niggas in the hood don't read. I didn't start reading until recently, because I've never have been thrown a text that is going to be about white supremacy, and very few other topics have interested me. But when your entire population of people for centuries, it was illegal to read, subconsciously or consciously, yeah, it's going to be hard for you to want to read when you probably will have your eyeballs poked out for reading if you're caught reading. And murder was a punishable offense under chattel slavery for getting caught reading. And my uncle can't even read. So and he like had quote on he didn't even grow up in like a poor like family type stuff. He just white supremacy and had a condition menticide him well enough to the point where he just didn't learn how to read. Didn't think it was anything of importance, or
Just
lack.
in the school system too, like totally sets it up. So like even like with my daughter, like it's supposed to be a okay school. They're still doing shit that is like not helping them read, or like keep perpetuating, like I don't know, like it's hard to explain, but you can just tell that they're so far behind, and they're like setting it up that way on purpose. Like they don't want certain schools or certain kids like to have the same standards as like white schools. And so they just set it up that way. Like it's, yeah, it's very like sad.
So I think the process to regenerating this murdered soul is through learning about what's been done, learning how it has affected the mind, and that's a great start.
Yeah.
There's
You
a
gotta
real
have like a kids book club. That'd be hella cool. Like,
yeah, high key.
yeah.
Um, there's a part in the ISIS papers where she's talking about how she would did like work on some of her patients, and one technique she would use is like for her patients who have been sexually abused, she would have them pretend to be like a soldier in the midst of battle and pretend that they're winning the battle. And it was really good. But I'm sure she would have them in some kind of like state to receive this technique much better. But I was able to imagine how that sort of thing would work, because you're like imagining winning a bloody battle. But that's really cool. So
like, are you supposed to like visualize the person as the other side, or is it just random? That's interesting.
And the mind is.
I feel like we need to do that for white supremacy. Like visualize, like like
You're talking about that too. Like
there's too much nihilism.
There's too much nihilism. People think that the job to defeat white supremacy can't be done, and people are also afraid of them. I know the job can be done, because I'm starting. No, I don't understand how their mind works, how they operate, and they're really the core. They just have two simplistic goals. They just want to kill for fun. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, it's like there's this thing called like capitalist realism, and it's like that. It's like white supremacy realism. It's like people. It's easier for people to envision, like the person who wrote that book said, it's easier for people to envision the end of the world versus like the end of capitalism. And it's like the same for white supremacy. Like it's easier for people to envision like the end of the world than like Black people being liberated, or like white supremacy ending, like which is true.
This documentary that we should probably watch together called Command and Conquer, that Jerome E. Fox, the author of Addicted to White, the other book I'm reading right now, and he mentions how white people are just waiting for the day for the masses to go ahead and make our day and bring about Armageddon. Like, and this is what the Command and Conquer documentary represents, according to him. Like, God damn, that sounds about white, because I think to that scene and Clint Eastwood movie, I forget, Dirty Harry, where like he's in he's chasing a black man, and the black man crashes the car, and then the black man is like maybe about to pull a gun, and Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood, says, "Go ahead, punk, make my day." I understand that scene so much more now. It's not. It's just like the whole mentality of the white collective, the white supremacist collective. Just they don't mind to get fight. They drive to a whole other city for opportunity to kill Black people, as we've seen in New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't think people really understand the fear that they have of like people uprising, like collectively. Like I think that people don't realize how big of a fear that is in like the white supremacist consciousness, because like, why do you think they set up all of these things, like a school system like this, like like a police system like this, like environmental racism, things like this. Like, it's even when it causes them suffering too. Like, there's white people now who are like moving into this neighborhood, and I'm just like this area probably has really bad air and shit, but like that quest for like conquest and power is really strong. And I think the fear of an uprising is I think it's very deep in their minds. And that's why they hate so many, like, whenever any country does anything to be independent of any way, the first thing they do is kill their leaders.
Oh, and maybe that's also why in Jim Crow laws, it was illegal for up to 5 Negroes. It's illegal for more than 5 Negroes to congregate. Go separate. Go not read somewhere. Go be terrorized by the whites elsewhere. Not together.
Yeah. Wow. And especially because Jim Crow was right after Reconstruction, when I think Reconstruction was like the highest amount of Black participation ever in like politics. Like there were
like a union membership and stuff.
Not just union membership, but like in terms of like there were Black people in whatever city councils,
Okay.
mayors, things like that, like in actual power. And it was like, because I think once Black people realize, like, you know, they definitely, like, that period is such an interesting and short period of time, but it really shows like when Black people, because at that time the Union soldiers were still in the South, so white people couldn't really do any fuck shit, right?
Oh,
So, like,
okay.
Black people like had a lot of power at that time, but like right after that was like Jim Crow, like a huge backlash, right? Because they were really seeing a South that actually, because the South is like at that time majority Black.
Yeah, it was like 5,000 black people in just certain small towns, but they were terrorized to such a capacity that like they were genuinely like afraid of Black people. This is why I've never.
Yeah, looking up Black office holders Reconstruction.
Even I was afraid. I'm afraid of the South. Like even in my youth, you know, I was afraid, just subconsciously afraid of going South. I just knew the South was where was bad things happen in the South, just because you're Black. Even as a child, I was aware of that, and I had no prior knowledge of what a lynching was, what anything was. I was just South was a bad place, man. And I know I shouldn't have that mentality, but that's where the whites are more able to show them their true selves.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, like when you learn a lot of this stuff in school, you learn the consequences that happen to Black people, but you don't learn the reasoning. Like you just learn that lynchings happen, but you don't hear that it's because like, like it's this fear of like Black men raping white women. That's never true. That doesn't like wasn't happening. Like they never talk about that type of stuff. So you don't even understand. I don't know where I'm getting at, but it's just like you don't understand how depraved like people were like when they were doing shit like that. Like you just that's just the natural order. They were just lynched. It's like what like why, you know?
It's like no, just so much work is done so that there's no example, no inspiration for people to recognize like horrible things that are happening now and to like, you know, want to change that. That's so true.
Yeah.
So I do not. Well, yeah, I think after reading this entire book, I understand homosexuality and under the context of like the slave system a lot. No, I didn't want to say a lot better because I understand it why the white men were doing it. I'm not understanding what the author is getting at in this chapter. Like not connecting the dots about how Baldwin is helping us to understand like homosexual behavior more during like I don't know. Yeah, but
yeah, for me a lot of stuff does not connect. Like I think he talks about the scene with his dad and then makes a connection to like homoeroticism in general, but I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily connected in any way, like and I feel like I don't know, I feel
like if there's enough of a basis to make that claim.
Yeah.
And do we know if Nat Turner was like participated in any like homosexual behavior? Are we even like, is that something that has been documented from a non-white person?
No, that's exactly what Woodard said. He was like, this is just something that came out of Styron's imagination.
Yeah, I'm like, I just
totally
yeah, okay, it's totally untrue information to.
Yeah, like how do you know how some guy's fart smelled? like 200 years ago. When I saw that part, I was like, what is this? Like, actual,
Some
like,
garbage fan fiction.
yeah, like, he won a Pulitzer Prize for it. Like, anything to be the white imagination. Like, just,
So yeah, yeah, that's just how, just a good example of how like white supremacy will just totally insult, the infinitely like powerful moments where despite this hell beast of a system, people fall back, and then we're met with just the typical diabolical violence.
yeah, the scene. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I just said in consequences.
Yeah, the scene with like Nat Turner and the other person, was he the
like falling on themselves and like what's that?
Yeah, I was
Like in his
I'm
youth?
watching like a rom-com.
Like,
Yeah.
Brokeback Mountain, but Negro slaves. I'm like, this is not accurate. This cannot be accurate.
But it was also like a weird dynamic because like Nat Turner was trying to Christianize him or something.
Yeah, this is not accurate. Like, this cannot be
Well,
accurate.
Nat Turner was super religious, I think.
Well, I'm not surprised, but like, as for this fictional character being like the perfect example of the African savage, is like,
yeah, I was like, this is too like with the necklaces. And
yeah, like no, he would not have been able to have any like.
Yeah, like they didn't even let Black women wear their hair out. Like you're telling me this guy was wearing like all of this like traditional African garb. I was like, I don't know if I buy this. Like
slavery is literally a fantasy for white people. Like it's a fantasy. When they think about slavery, they don't think about the mind of a person in total fear and captivity under another human being. They don't think about that. They think about, man, that's crazy. You can own slaves, tell them what to do, tell them what to do, tell them what to eat. You can give them pretty clothes. Sickness.
Yeah.
This gave me a bit more context for just like understanding maybe like the aversion to homosexuality, like that I don't think is like specific to like Black activists, but just like that any like marginalized group trying to like, I don't know, when like such an attack on like manhood has been made and like making the connections to that in the 60s, but it's still, I feel like this is really like out there, like very like I mean, it is important. Like, I'm glad we read it because I just feel like this is so outside like the mainstream, like organizing space of like just like the history of like like heritage of like homosexuality or like what that means and like could have looked like. So I don't know. I feel like it might be like necessary. It's weird because obviously like I guess I don't know how to say this because it's like obviously like y'all know what I believe, but like makes me empathize with like homophobia or like not like
understand homophobia. I mean,
yeah, like understand. I don't know. Camera. I'm like, please. It's like I'm a queer person. Like, I guess just like understand how that was like a reaction. I'm just like, I'm actually homophobic. No. But
I've come out as homophobic.
Yeah. But just I guess like give like more context for how, like in writings in terms of like otherwise leaders that wrote like really amazing, like radical things, how this was like homophobia was also like in line with that or like easily like came up. Because I'm like, I mean, goddamn, like, this, yeah, so
Now I'm thinking about it in I think about in the context of the status quo being what the white supremacists,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever they have going on, however they have the people behaving, it's it's there's a reason behind it. It's either serving their purpose or it's getting ready to serve their purpose, because um homosexual behavior was at one point in time like very stigmatized, and for some reason it's becoming less stigmatized. No, well, at one point in time, sex was stigmatized. Talking about sex, period. Like it was not something you ever done.
Mm-hmm.
It was, as you just said, that the Brady Bunch didn't even show characters on the same bed together. While like in real life, we had like 2 lunches a week. So the way sex is being used, all sex, heterosex, homosexual sex, non sex, I think is being used as a way to make sex as a whole more, I don't know, just more meaningless. It's becoming like Ash mentioned the other day, like a skill that a person has to like develop, rather than like something you should do with someone you're connected to, or something you should do when you're trying to reproduce a offspring. So yeah, the status. So whatever it is the white supremacists are doing, it has to be for a reason. And if you could convince a lot of people, do by any means, a lot of people that you don't want making babies, if you could convince them to devalue sex, you could potentially like create the atmosphere where a lot of less black babies are being born, or black babies are being born in the condition that's gonna serve your structures you already have set in place via like indoctrination in schools, school to prison pipeline, and just people who should not be having kids together. When I say people who aren't aware of the system that they're bringing these kids into.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a good takeaway.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I don't know if I fully agree with you, but like, I do agree that like population and understanding like that's a really big priority for people in power. Like birth rates, they think they talk about it and think about it a lot more than we talk about it and think about it. And the like, you can always track like abortion rights with like white people and their ability to procreate. So now it's like, because birth rates are low amongst white people, there's like less or there's more, I guess, stringent laws towards abortion and stuff like that. Whereas like in the past, like black women have been given like, or black children, really black kids have been given birth control. Like they would canvass their freaking high schools and like give them birth control at like 14 and stuff. That was like not tested. That's a medical apartheid. Can actually cause like a lot of harm later on and shit. And like obviously sterilization and stuff like that has happened. So it's definitely like the case that it's there. And like I remember listening to someone, there's like these two researchers, they're both gay. One is a gay black man, the other one's a gay white man, and they do research on like social dominance theory. And they did these studies that show that like for jobs and stuff, black men that are coded as straight are like, or it's easier to get a job if you are a black man that's coded as not straight, because it's like, I think it's easier, and I don't know why necessarily, but you're viewed as less of a threat, and you're viewed as like less like more able to fit into white supremacist culture. And that's the same for black women too. And that makes sense because black women are like one of the most educated groups, and there's actually like more black women professors than black male professors, things like that.
Doctors.
So like it checks out. Like I don't know like if I can go all the way to say that like they're convincing people to be gay, but I do think that like there's a benefit to it, not necessarily like there's a benefit to being a Black woman, to be honest. And I know that's like a controversial statement because of like Black feminism, but like there is a benefit to being a Black woman. You're more likely to get benefits if you have a kid. If there's no Black man around, like you're more likely to get a job, or like you're more likely to not be killed by the police, like things like that. So yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which is not saying that that doesn't happen, because you know people love to put words in people's mouths. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say
I
that.
feel like we're like these things are able to be said here because like we all know the understanding that we have, and like yeah, I feel actually there's someone I follow on Instagram who he's like a Black techno DJ, cultural he's from the Midwest, like cultural commentator, and he was just saying how like people like the way people view intersectionality is like such bullshit as these like plus points, minus points for like whatever identities. And he's like every time people like he was just talking a lot about how like the phrase like Black men are the weakest link is like such bullshit. And like
problematic.
Yeah, and just like how can people, you know, just like you can't think about people in this way, like the experiences that like Black men and Black women, just because like patriarchy exists, you know, you can't like it's so people, violent.
Like even through like Delectable Negro, white male patriarchy affects Black men too, which is so it's like it's hard to say that, and I don't think that there is like a Black male patriarchy like at all. And even Kimberly Crenshaw herself said, like, you know, intersectionality is not additive. Like, it's not like I'm Black, gay, and woman, so therefore I'm more oppressed. But it's like people kind of ran with it and turned it into like.
Now it's so bad.
If you understand that if you understand white supremacy, you can understand the Black men are the weakest link, as Black men are the biggest threat to white genetic annihilation, meaning Black people have the greatest potential to create Black babies, which white people do not like, subconsciously or consciously, and both.
Yeah. So, also to add on to that, like, you know, ultimately, like, revolutions are violent, and like, and you know,
males, you need the males.
Yeah, like you need forces of masculinity as well, and so, you know, to take that away is also a way to like kind of de-radicalize or defang revolutions. Yeah.
So
yeah.
If you understand how the white supremacist mind operates, you can understand all these little victims of white supremacy. You can understand their little coin, their little slogan that they come up with. You can understand it all.
Yeah, and like the infighting is so fucked up. Like when you think about it in that context, like.
Yeah, divide and conquer. Divide the mind too. Divide everything. Capitalism, white supremacy. Let's do it.